SwayamPrabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello friends, in the last class we have seen certain examples around the world where artists have incorporated science and technology in their artwork and what results they have been produced. We have seen magnificent installation, we have seen magnificent pieces of art, we have seen multimedia artwork which has incorporated science and technology. As I have told you before that this course is about, we are basically focusing upon Indian folk art. So, let us see what potential Indian folk art has got and whether it is able to communicate messages in a effective manner. So, today we will focus on the effectiveness of Indian folk art and if it has the vocabulary, if it has the potential to express complex things like science and technology. So, folk art a potent medium of communications. So, let us see if what has folk art, the role folk art has played in in the process of communication. The use of folk media for communication is not new. Since the 1950s, folk media has served as a complementary source of communication alongside mainstream media. So, mainstream media would be newspaper, television, radio, also films are sometimes considered as mainstream media. And since the 1950s onwards, right after the independence, folk media has also served as parallelly along with mainstream media to communicate messages. This media has been used to transfer knowledge and information in order to educate, spread awareness, persuade and entertain. For communication throughout the world, traditional media has been evoked. For example, for women and child safety and health and hygiene, importance of education, educate the farmers regarding better crop yields, curb social evils like child marriage, dowry and alcoholism, inform about deadly diseases like cancer, HIV, AIDS, etc. So, folk art or the folk media has been traditionally used, has been to convey messages of social importance, to convey messages regarding social evils, or to make the people aware about certain things that the government or the deciding agencies would like the people to be aware about. Like initially it was used to talk to the rural masses about the importance of education, regarding the importance of not giving dowry or stopping child marriage. So, these are the certain messages which that was spread among the people using traditional media. Folk art forms originate from local cultural norms, belief and tradition. The content can hence be couched in culturally appropriate ways. Here lies the success of folk art form as a tool of communication. So, as we have seen in the previous classes that folk art forms are not top down, but they come from the community themselves. The folk art forms are bear in the essence the cultural norms of the community, the belief, the traditions, and the themes can vary depending upon the situation or the setting. So, here lies the effectiveness of folk art, that because it is so close to the community, because it is so close to the belief system, that it can convey a message effectively, it can be accepted more easily. 90% of the world's population lives in developing countries and 70% of them live in rural areas. Mainstream mass media such as newspaper, television and the internet do not effectively reach the section of people. So, we have a large section of people even in today's India which are not touched by newspapers, television or internet. But what are the other means of communication? The folk art could be one, folk media could be one. Also many research studies show these media do not have the effective impact in terms of motivating change and development. So, even if they reach, they do not have the required or the desired impact on the people, because they do not see, they do not relate their day to day matters with this kind of media. They do not relate their life with television, or they do not relate their life with internet. So, the effectiveness is less. The high rate of illiteracy added to the inadequate reach of mass media impede almost 80% of India's population who reside in the rural areas. This is where folk media is mostly useful. So, this is where folk media is mostly useful, where there is a large scale illiteracy, where there is large scale unawareness. Folk media can come handy in this kind of situation. Folk art and traditional media are the aesthetic components of the concepts of belonging and affinity in a cultural context. In traditional societies, art is an integral part of process of living in the community. So, here folk art can be useful, where communities readily accept the art form, because they are there, because they are born from the community themselves. So, the message that is conveyed by this traditional media are easily accepted by the people. Characteristics of traditional folk media: they have sustained the onslaught of time, as we have discussed earlier, that folk art, folk media, they have been around for a long period of time. They are called timeless, because nobody knows when it began. It has been also always there in the cultural matrix. They have sustained by changing with the changing times. So, they we should not assume that folk art is something that is of the past, but folk art often goes through change. They are dynamic, they go through change depending upon the changing time. Any person is always a participant in a performance, never an audience. So, we have discussed that there are no formal trained experts in the field of folk art. Everyone learns through observation, everyone learns through looking at others. So, everyone participates. So, everybody feels a sense of ownership in the folk art medium. So, nobody is an audience, everyone participates. This is one of the very important characteristics, that everyone feels the ownership of the art. It is spontaneous, as we have discussed. It is not trained in schools, it is not learned formally, it does not have a code, but it is very spontaneous. It is flexible, it is not it does not have a codified language, but it is flexible depending upon the the way a community would like to use it. It is cost effective and therefore has enhanced repeatability. So, it is always cost effective. You will hardly come across any folk art or folk media that is very costly. You will hardly see they are hardly seen being sold in a high cost in a traditional setup. Now, of course, when you go to buy folk art from the market, it will be highly priced, but actually it is always done for the people, by the people. It is done for their personal use or for the use of a certain amount of close people. So, they are highly cost effective. It has immediate feedback and increased attentiveness. So, it has because it is produced for a small number of people, small number within the community itself. So, it has immediate feedback and increased attentiveness. It is not commercially produced, it is not produced in a large scale. So, every artwork or every painting or every performance will have a lot of attentiveness, because it is not produced in a large scale for a large number of people, but by a small number of people for a definite number of other people for consumption. It is performed in a local language promoting intelligibility. So, it is not done in foreign language which people do not relate to. It is done, it is always has a local vocabulary. So, if you it is true for every folk art. If you see a a folk painting, you will always see the motifs, or you will always see the symbols that the community can relate to. You will see a flower motif that is found around them, or you will see an animal motif that is found around them. So, it is always people can always relate to it and they do not find it foreign. And also when there is performance, the performance is always done in the local language, the language that people speak around. So, there is always a sense of belongingness, a sense of ownership when in folk art. It is direct and personal. So, there is no in between medium. There is always, it is produced for one set of people, for another set of people, and it is always direct. There is no medium within it. So, it is very personal from one person to other. So, it is the connection is very direct. So, these are the few characteristics. This list is again not exhaustive, but a few characteristics of the traditional folk media. The communication, now let us discuss a bit about Indian folk media. The communication potential of Indian traditional performing art has been proven time and again throughout the history. So, we must bear in mind that folk media has been always been used in history to communicate things, and mostly the theatre component of media has been used to convey things. Alha, the popular ballad of Uttar Pradesh and its counterparts like Lavani of Maharashtra, Giji of Karnataka, Villupattu of Tamil Nadu and Kabigan of Bengal were effective in arousing the conscience of the people against the colonial rule of the British. So, during the British colonial times, when the Indians were struggling for independence, this folk medium came handy. They were perform to arouse emotions, to arouse nationalism among the people, and to have a sense of distance from the British and how we should attain independence from the British. So, this kind of emotions were invoked by using folk media. Traditional media became effective in the many political and social campaigns launched by Mahatma Gandhi, and after independence the Union government continued to utilize this traditional folk arts to convey messages and generate awareness of development programs in rural areas. So, Mahatma Gandhi was a big proponent of folk medium. He said he was of the view that folk media can directly reach the people. So, this should be made use of and should be used to propagate messages, to propagate message of nationalism, and so at that time using various folk media techniques, people were made conscious, people were made aware about the need to have a opinion against the British colonial rule. So, even after independence, the Union government has used these techniques to spread or to disseminate many ideas that it wanted to disseminate for the newly forming nation. So, when the nation was forming, folk medium came very handy, because they wanted to generate the idea of nationalism about the new nation. So, folk media was excessively used during that time also. In the 1940s, Indian People Theatre Association used some of the popular regional theatre forms like Jatra of Bengal, Bhavai of Gujarat, Tamasha of Maharashtra and Bura Katha of Andhra Pradesh to increase social awareness and political education. In 1977, a voluntary non-government organization in Kerala called Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad organized Science Jatha, a science procession to spread the message of people's involvement in the development process. From 1980s, the Jatha began to use different folk art form for conveying the themes, which were mainly on education, health, environment and social equality. The repertoire consisted of songs, street dramas and other several forms of folk art. So, one should bear in mind that when we talk about folk media, we immediately think about theatre or performances, but folk media also incorporates paintings and and other folk art forms also, which are used to convey messages. Soon the Jatha began to be known as Kala Jathas, and they became so popular that they began to be used extensively not only in Kerala, but in some other parts of India also, where the local organization and people have received inspiration from KSSP and have started delivering messages through folk art. So, Kerala was one of the state which had which was pioneer in using folk art for spreading messages, and other states later on got inspired by them, and they too started using their local art forms to spread messages, socially valued messages. Well known theatre personality Ravi Verma of Vikas Lokmanch has been creatively interpreting social realities by interweaving them into the fabric of folk dance, choral singing, etc. with the help of slum children. He deals with issues like alcoholism, pollution, religion, inequalities of caste and class, communalism and so forth. One of the group's most famous street play is Hame Jawab Chahiye on the Bhopal gas tragedy. The play reminds the audience, who are mostly children, that the Bhopal incident is not a dead issue and that its aftermath still haunts the lives of many. Folk songs have played a very important role in the Chipko and Ibko movement. Folk singers of region composed songs in folk tunes and sang them in the streets. The rural children picked them up immediately and sang them all the time. Thus, they played the role of communicators. In a similar instance, environmentalists used folk art in South India in the Save the Western Ghat campaign, which was headed by Save Sangh and supported by a number of other activist groups. Rajasthan Adult Education Association has conducted an experiment in a village, Deva Kishnapura, where they sponsored Ravi Chaturvedi, an alumnus of National School of Drama, for formulating development messages through the use of theatre based on stories from the epic. He identified three main uses: untouchability, health hazards and internal feuds, which was rampant in the village. He selected some episodes from the epic Ramayana which had dramatic elements and action, and reinterpreted them in the context of the problems prevailing in the village. He enacted it with the help of the village youth and with great success. So, there have been time and again there have been people who has tried to use the folk art medium to spread messages of social relevance. So, we have seen examples from Rajasthan, we have seen examples from Bhopal, we have seen examples from Kerala. So, in history there have been a lot of instances where artists have tried to generate social consciousness or to generate social value by using the folk art medium. And why they use the folk art medium is because we have discussed before that people very readily accept them, very readily accept this means of communicating message, that because they are this medium are their own, they can easily relate themselves to this folk medium. So, where does folk medium appear to be more effective than mainstream medium? Here is a list. So, there are certain features of folk medium that makes it more effective than mainstream medium. Let us discuss them. So, investment, as we have discussed, folk medium is negligible, it is very low cost. So, there is investment is very low. Electronic medium, or when you are saying electronic medium, you are also talking about other mainstream medium, like it might be print medium also. So, we are just making a differentiation between folk medium and the mainstream medium. So, investment in folk media is negligible, whereas in the mainstream media is quite high. Power, it is not essential, but in mainstream media it is quite essential. Power of the people, people who hold the power plays quite a important role in mainstream media. Receiver set not required, electronic media it is required. Maintenance not in folk media not required, in electronic media it is required. Technical. So, these are some of the points by which folk media is more effective than electronic media or the mainstream media. So, it is cost effective, it is more accepted by the people, it is more it bears more emotional attachment, people bear more emotional attachment to the folk media rather than the mainstream media, which would include print and the electronic media. So, here I would like to mention how folk media to communicate science and technology. It is being used in a course in Indian Institute of Science, mapping India with the folk arts. As part of this course, humanities course, for which is taught to the undergraduate students, a project called Arting Science is being conducted, where science and technology are brought together with art. And art is not any general art. Here folk art is brought together with science and technology, and every year students produce different kinds of material which brings together art along with science and technology. So, it can be a visual, it can be performative, it can be narrative. So, every year different kinds of artwork is discussed, and students are producing different kinds of material which combine science and technology with art. So, now I am going to give you an example how folk art can be brought together with science and technology, and how folk art has the vocabulary, has the potential to talk about complex issues of science and technology. So, I will give you some of the examples here. So, this is a book which was edited by me, and we published this book in 2016 called Arting Science. This has a picture, it's a compilation of the artworks that students, the undergraduate students of IIC have made, and the project given to them was to talk about science concept using Indian folk art. So, this is Mendel's first law of inheritance in Madhubani. We have already discussed Madhubani painting. So, this group was asked to do represent a science concept with using Indian folk art, and this group chose to do Mendel's first law of inheritance using Madhubani painting. For those of you who are aware of this law, it says that when two alleles come together, in one generation one allele is expressed, which is the dominant allele, and one is recessive, but in a successive generation 3 offsprings might or 3 of the dominant might be expressed, and one the recessive allele might be expressed. So, this is just look at the motifs that are used, which we have already discussed. The fish motif of Madhubani, that is very effectively used to express Mendel's first law. This is a metamorphosis in church art style. So, metamorphosis, for those of is where any living organism changes its physical appearance. Here the caterpillar is turning to a butterfly. It is done in glass. This painting was done in glass, which is more common in church around India. So, here they are showing how the caterpillar is turning to a butterfly, and at the same time they are showing some moral values, that how gluttony, how anger can be turned to different kinds of positive feelings, the tolerance, intelligence, patience, kindness, charity, how this can actually turn to positive values. This is Fud painting. We have also discussed Fud painting in earlier classes, which is commonly found in Rajasthan area. Just look at the way this was done in cloth. It is a scroll painting which can be rolled. It is a long scroll painting which can be rolled. Here the king falls in love with a girl who is much younger to him. Then he goes to a time machine and he returns after the girl, and returns back when the girl has grown up. So, this is the Fud painting showing twin paradox in Fud. So, friends, today we have seen some example how folk art also has the potential to express science and technology in a very effective way. From the next class onwards, we will see more example. We will see examples not only from painting, but we will see examples from music, dance, theatre, and this course is all about exploring scientific and technological research using Indian folk art. So, we will see how effectively they can express scientific and technological research by using folk medium, by using folk art. And after that we will implore you to also explore some of the ideas that would come to you after looking at these examples. Okay. See you in the next class. Thank you.